Greetings, my name is YIREH, metric number A20A1326. Burkina Faso is a country located at the west side of Africa. This country gained its independence in 1958 as Republic of Upper Volta and renamed itself as Burkina Faso in 1984. Their country's economy is based on the primary sector of economy, which includes subsistence agriculture and allocation of other resources. Burkina Faso suffers with poverty and it has gone worse during the pandemic. This is because Burkina Faso suffers with lack of rural productivity, unmanaged rural exodus, and continuous growth of population in the country.
Assalamualaikum, my name is ZAIKHA binti ISHAIFUL, my metric number 80A1374. For question A, the economic activity that is the support of Burkina Faso and act as a contributor to their economic growth is dependent on the level of productions and the global price of cotton and gold, as it is their source of export. This is because it is reported that about 90% of the population of Burkina Faso is engaged in subsistence agriculture and cotton is the main cash crop in the country. This is due to the geographical structure of the country, which is mostly a flat savanna but accessible by 3 rivers and has limited natural resource estimate and a weak industrial base. With this, the people have acted to engage in agriculture activities and gold explorations to increase the economic growth of their country. Thank you.
Hi, my name is HAKIM JASNI, matrix number A20B1432. Impact of COVID-19 to the economic growth of Burkina Faso. In 2020, economic growth is estimated to be 2.0%, 4 percentage points lower than forecast before COVID-19. The trade balance will be improved by 1.0% point of GDP due to historically high gold and low oil price. In 2020, the budget deficit climbed from 3.2 to 5.2% of GDP. By 2020, the national debt was 47.6% of GDP. The economy is likely to continue to improve in 2021 despite the COVID-19 shock still being felt. On expect the budget deficit to continue high at 5.2% of GDP as security, humanitarian, health, and social issues persist. Thank you.
SHAHIDAN product of JASWANT and my message number is A20A2267 and I'm going to present impact of COVID-19 towards the employment in Burkina Faso. Unemployment rate is the percentage of the work that is unemployed. People who are employed or unemployed, that is those who do not have a job but are actively seeking for one to make up the labour force. People who are not seeking for employment are children and elderly, which are not included in the labour force. The data represents Burkina Faso's workforce from 2013 till 2020, which total million people. Burkina Faso had average people of 5.44 million people over that time of period, with a low of 3.86 million in 1990 and a high of 7.6 million in 2020. Most recent estimate for 2020 is 7.6 million people. The world average population in 2020, based on 181 nations, is 19.49 million people. The pandemic affected 3 main sectors in Burkina Faso, which is agriculture, industry and service. The sectors that are affected by the pandemic will surely restructure their organization and reduce their labor workforce. This will lead to the employees to lose their job and employment rate to increase. The 2 shows the unemployment rate in Burkina Faso from 2013 till 2020. The average rate for over the time was 3.81%, with a lowest of 2.44% in 1998 and a highest rate of 6.48% of unemployment rate in 2014. 4.96% is the most current data from 2020. The unemployment rate on 2018 was 4.7%, whereas as 2019 is 4.62. The unemployment rate decreased by 0.08%. The unemployment rate on 2020 is 4.96%, which shows increasement by 0.34% compared to the unemployment rate on 2019. Burkina Faso had to shut down the economy sectors as COVID-19 was still spreading widely. This caused the sectors to close down and restricted by the government. This led to the unemployment rate to drop as the employers could not take the risk in keeping the employees when the economy falls. The employees couldn't pay wages during the restrictions and results in terminating in the employees. This led to unemployment rate to increase.
Assalamualaikum, my name is NORDIN and my number is A20A1714. Now I will continue the presentation, which is the impact of COVID-19 to the inflation rate of Burkina Faso. Firstly, impact on income and demand. Social distancing and curfew in the country will decrease the household income and demand for service, including transport and business. Many of them need to face losses in business because due to the loss of income among them. Secondly, cost travel through disturbance in production and worldwide supply chains. Since developing nation want expensive share a middle person make that from developed nation for their business, disturbance of supply chains may decrease production and total supply and influence buyer cost in developing the nation. And lastly, the decrease of forecast for commodities and decrease product cost. The collapse in product cost interpret into diminish in salary for farmer in developing nation, and this manner less family demand. The drop in product cost contrarily influence trade income and may interpret into exchange shortfall, which is able to depreciate the national money.
Good day and greetings to Dr. NORDIN. I'm Punitha BALAKRISHNAN, matrix number 820A1911. Today I'd like to present on the impact of pandemic COVID-19 to the economic activities in Burkina Faso. So let's see on the impacts of Burkina Faso towards its economic activities. Firstly, Burkina Faso relies on food and pharmaceutical imports. Secondly, Burkina Faso has prohibited travel, particularly air travels. And finally, Burkina Faso has wreaked havoc Burkina Faso's import, exports, and local and global value chains. As a first point, let's see how Burkina Faso relies on food and pharmaceutical imports. Roughly 2 to 3/3 of African countries are the net importers of basic food, and crisis-induced shortages might have a substantial impact on its viability. Countries like Nigeria, Mali, and Burkina Faso, who have all undergone previous food crises and have 2.5 million undernourished children, will undoubtedly feel the brunt of the consequences. Countries that are heavily reliant on food imports, such as Mauritania, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Gambia, will suffer if restriction on movement and transportation reduce access to markets, or if producers of agriculture commodities such as rice enact export restriction or bans, as happened during the 2008 food price crisis. Countries with strong agriculture production capacity such as Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal, Ghana, and Cabo Verde would relaunch local production. Next, let's see on how Burkina Faso prohibited travel, particularly air travel. On the 24th of January, HAB crossings were closed, and while Burkina Faso has reopened, just a few aircrafts are running. Land crossings remain blocked to private travel, with humanitarian vehicles, essential cargo, and equipment meant for defense and security forces being the sole exceptions. The number of commercial flights to and from Burkina Faso continues to be restricted, and the borders on land and water remain blocked till further notice from the government. Passengers arriving in Burkina Faso without a negative PCR test performed within the last 5 days will have their identification documents temporarily seized and will be compelled to do a rapid diagnostic test and a PCR test after payment. For the test has been verified, the confiscated identification documents will be returned to the passengers again. Just in case of positive RDT test, travelers will be quarantined for the next 72 hours at their own expense in a government-provided hotel while waiting for the PCR test results, and children under the age of 6 are eligible for the free RDT and PCR testing in Burkina Faso. Finally, wreak havoc Burkina Faso's imports, exports, and local and global value chain. Over half of Africa industrial machinery, manufacturing, and transportation equipment is imported. The availability of final intermediate commodities imported into Africa will be reduced due to COVID-19 related supply chain disruptions, mainly in China and Europe. Supply restriction and possible reshoring of industrial activities closer to eventual customers may hurt lower value added sectors the most in the long run, including agriculture, flowers, and apparel. Finally, sectors that are tightly tied to global value chains, on the other hand, may recover more quickly, such as aeronautics in South Africa, automotive in Morocco, information and communication technology in Tunisia, and so on.
Fiscal policy and monetary policy of Burkina Faso. Monetary policy. The Central Bank of West African States is in charge of determining monetary policy in Burkina Faso, with the primary goal of controlling and containing inflation. Until 2004, the consumer price index CPI was able to maintain a rather stable level. After a period of stagnation, it surged to a record height of 6.4% in 2005, the highest level observed since 1998. The reduction is expected to continue in 2007 with an inflation rate of roughly 2.7% of GDP according to forecast for 2007. Fiscal policy. One of the convergence requirements requires a tax contribution of 70% of GDP. Indeed, fiscal revenue barely topped 11% of GDP, but it has been expanding steadily since 2006. Improving custom administration and implementing a new investment law were the emphasis of fiscal reform in 2006. Lastly, the government kept the oil tax but raised subsidies to Senegal by 18 million CFA francs, 0.6% of GDP in 2006, to avert 30% spike in power price.
In conclusion, Burkina Faso can overcome the economical crisis by optimizing their members' benefit in ECOWAS. ECOWAS can help them raise some funds to spread their trades and gain new customers from different markets. For starters, they can get sponsorship from ECOWAS to invest in modern machineries and technologies for their business in agriculture and develop their country to have a better future without poverty.